All right, all right. There we go. Good afternoon, everybody. Great to see anyone who's able to stop in. I know it's much earlier today than I would usually do one of these live streams, but I had realized because of an earlier vote that I did on the community page on YouTube, many people wanted to see a presentation on beauty once again. So I'm hoping that I can discuss that. I also realized my last attempt at live streaming beauty ended up having a lot of black screens. And so this time I'm going to have the YouTube app open and running so I can see the presentation the whole time to make sure nothing's missing, nothing's gone, nothing's no black screens this time, hopefully. And if there is one, I can stop it before it's too late. So that is the goal. I'm going to make sure I could see this on my phone right here because this is happening right now. I'm going to make sure I can see this. And hopefully all of you can see this live stream too as we go through. I hope so. Let's see if we're good on this part here. Okay. I can see myself. That's a good sign. Very good sign. Another good sign is everything is working up top. Wonderful. Love to see that. Okay. So I should be good here. There we go. There we go. Should be all set. Again, today I just wanted to do a quick presentation on beauty. I think my last attempt at this led to a lot of technological issues, so I'm going to make sure, first and foremost, that you're able to see my screen when I start sharing. I've also updated my presentation a little bit with some more data on beauty, and hopefully this will awaken the depth of beauty, the interest, the intrigue, and how interesting beauty is. So I hope you'll all be able to embrace, alongside me, the mystery, which is beauty. The fact that us humans enjoy it so much, that we are so often so quick to jump towards it. I hope that wherever you are, morning, evening, night, you'll be able to watch this live stream or video that comes after and enjoy this presentation. I'll have the first section in which I talk about beauty as it is, just or simply as it is, and how that points or makes more sense with a Christian view of beauty than with an atheistic, agnostic, or other worldview position on beauty. So I think Christianity has the best explanation, or theism in general has the best explanation for the facts of beauty, which would be the attributes, the acts of it, and the ethics which follow. And then in my second half of the presentation, I'll talk about the similarities between Christian and Islamic philosophy on the idea of beauty, but then see if Islamic philosophy is able to be consistent with the Quranic explanations of beauty, of the Quranic explanations of morality, and the modern Islamic view of Allah and his nature. So that's what I'm doing today. That is what I'm doing today. I hope all of you who are watching are able to share with anybody else who might want to watch, and anybody else who is interested in these theological, philosophical discussions about beauty and about God, about religion and about the truth of God. I pray that people would come through and join us for discussion. I can see everything clearly on my phone while we're doing this live stream. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to let me know. I am more than willing to answer the questions people have, especially those ones that are on point and related to the discussion. But again, wonderful to have people here. Tony's Coffee House. Hi, Tony. How you doing? Nice to have you for this live stream. It's going to be very exciting as we go through beauty. I'm going to do it right this time. No technological issues, God willing. No black screens. Just a nice, simple presentation for anyone watching. They can watch it later as well, and it shouldn't be too difficult to follow, I pray. But again, if you have any questions at all, let me know. I'm more than happy to help out and answer questions as we go through. And so, with that being said, I hope you've all had a good day today, by the way. I always hope that people have a good day. Never want someone to have a bad day. That would be live stream. Are able to see my screen switch real quick. And if it is a black screen, which I think it is, I'm going to switch right out of it. I'm going to stop sharing and we're going to try a different approach. Sometimes it just takes a few tries to, yeah, let's see if this one will work instead. Sometimes it just takes a few tries to make sure that it correctly presents. Oh, this one looks like it's working. How's that, everybody? Y'all able to see this presentation so far? I think I can. You should be good, God willing. Be okay. Let me know if there's any, if that is okay. Yep, you're able to see the screen. That's good. That is good to see. Alrighty. If that's the case and all is well there, I'm going to try and start this presentation here on the. I'd be okay even with just looking at the camera if I need to and posting a separate recording later for the presentation or slideshow. So hopefully you're able to see everything on my screen as we present. So do let me know if it lags too much, and I will just change the way that I'm presenting this. I want it to be open and accessible for all of you. At least hear clear enough, then we will go on. So for everyone watching, how can we define beauty? That various philosophers and theologians have had to describing beauty throughout church history and throughout many religious forms of religious history. According to Norman Geisler in Systematic Theology, Volume 2, the essence of beauty is that which is being perceived pleases. Or elsewhere, this is a more Thomistic, Thomas Aquinas account. He would say beauty is being insofar as it is pleasurable to the one experiencing it. Perceived here does not refer to visual perception or non-sensory. I don't want people to think that beauty is only something you see, but also it's really something you experience. It's something that you. If we're clear on that, let me know. Hopefully that'll be clear enough for everyone. I'm going to try something real quick. I'm going to see if I can let the internet catch up with me because it was looking like it was lagging a little bit. Don't want you guys to have to struggle with that. So I'm just going to make sure everything is good right now. Good right now. Okay. Seems like we're okay there. Good. Alrighty. If that's good and everyone can hear me clearly, I'll go right back into it. Just want to make sure everyone's following along as we go through this. Nothing's too difficult to hear at all. So I'm going to keep on making sure that that's okay. Okay, just lags when you switch screens. Okay, that's good to know. I'll keep that in mind. When I switch screens. All right, let's see how it goes here. Still black. I figured. Yeah, all right, still black screen, I'm guessing. So if that's the case, I'm just going to switch back. Sorry, everyone. These technical difficulties are somewhat consistent, so I'm just going to try and make sure y'all can see everything. Just showed it at the end there, and then I switched off right when it finally loaded. That would stink because that's the one that the least lag. So let's see if that works. Okay, that might be okay. Let me know as I go into this full screen version of it. And let's see if it is able to keep up with my presentation. And if not, again, it's okay. I'm all right with just speaking about it if it's too difficult to follow otherwise. So that is okay. All right, it's correcting itself. It's getting there. Good. So again, beauty is just that quality which, upon being known, pleases the knower, yet which remains a quality even when not being perceived. So I'm strictly arguing that beauty is, in some sense, an objective quality about something, and as such, it just exists as a fact, whether people perceive it as such or not, as in whether individual humans perceive it as such or not. So beauty is considered a transcendental. The four transcendentals are the one, the true, the good, and the beautiful. Although sometimes when they say the one, It's a little bit of a weird word, so they are referring to unity. Unity as in the oneness or the unification of things, the fact that things are, that they exist. So beauty is a transcendental quality, which is usually meant to indicate that it is a universal, as in it's not confined by, but goes beyond or transcends all particular categories. And you'll notice this once you check out what we're about to go over pretty soon. But beauty does seem to transcend a lot of these separate categories we would usually give for it. We know that beauty, we know that there's beauty from the sensuous experience which presents and withdraws it, reveals and again conceals it, evanescent in myriad layers. So this is transcendentality and Gestalt and Communo 11. And this is a really, really good book from, oh man, I have it right up there. It's a description of the nature of beauty. And I think that's von Hauser. I'm going to have to check again because he's a big part of a lot of my writing. But beauty is from sensuous experience. I would kind of push back on him there because technically beauty goes beyond just sensuous experience, your sensory stimuli. Beauty is a real experience, but you can actually have it with things that aren't sensory. And the strangest part is that these transcendentals are said to be all present. Good, the good is in some sense beautiful, the beautiful is in some sense true, as in something is truly beautiful, not deceptively so. And so the truth must be present in the beautiful some way, the good must be presented in the beautiful some way. But that's how these transcendentals work. And to clarify how we can know that beauty is a transcendental, the concept, it's because it seems to go beyond physical limits, and even the kind of physical limits it would have, it doesn't have. So beauty can be physical and visual. For instance, something that's an actual like physical object or physical reality that we can see. So we could say, "Oh, that mountain is beautiful," and we use this terminology in different languages. We use the same kind of idea. The mountain is beautiful. The valley is beautiful. This house is beautiful. We use this language, physical and visual. And then as a result, some people say that, beauty is only skin deep, but that's not really true because we also see that we call things beautiful, which are physical but non-visual, like music. Music is physical, as in it literally affects physical material, right? It's vibrations through the air that reach our ears and we perceive it as music when it is musical. So beauty can be physical, something that's interactive in a physical way, but non-visual. I don't see music, right? I don't actually see the notes and the sound waves floating into my ears, but I still perceive the music, and as a result, I can call the music beautiful. So beauty applies to visual things and non-visual things, but both physical, and then beauty applies to things that are non-physical. So not even visual or non-visual, but just non-physical, abstract ideas and concepts, values, if you want to say that, like hope, love, and unity. Beauty can be applied to things like hope, love, and unity. And that's really interesting. Really, really interesting how that works. And so we'll go through that a little bit more if need be. I'm sure a lot of you can think of other things that are abstract concepts that you find beautiful. Some people would say, oh, the idea of a unified family or the idea of a loving family, I find very beautiful, right? But that's not actually visual, as in it's not legitimately like in front of your face when you're thinking of that concept. It's not something that's entering into your ears when you think of that concept. It's abstract, but it's still beautiful. Love is still beautiful, even if you can't literally see love. It's still beautiful. That's what we're trying to get at here, or even just non-physical. So in that sense, it transcends all of these separate categories, but we're still using the same word, or in different languages, we're using the same concept to talk about these various things. So this is a little confusing. I mean, when we talk about a mountain, are we just calling it beautiful because it's pointy and rocky? Well, apparently not, because then we have to say that music is pointy and rocky. But music is not pointy and rocky because that's not a thing that music can be, unless you're talking about rock and roll, kind of rock. What on earth are we talking about when we use this word or this concept in different cultures, different languages? What are we appealing to? Well, hopefully in the first part of this presentation, I can explain that a bit better, that there is something deeper that is really true. We're able to say that a mountain is beautiful and music is beautiful and hope, love, unity, all these different abstract concepts are beautiful and really mean that. We're actually using the word correctly, I think. So, for us to understand this, I've done a lot of work, a lot of research, and a lot of interviews with various people about the nature of beauty. And it become very clear to me that there's two ways to think about beauty, given the different answers that people give to my two questions, which are to random people at coffee shops. I'm sure anyone who's ever met me at a random coffee shop in the 4 or 5 states I visited to do these interviews. Hey, nice to see you again, number one. But number two, the two questions I would ask people are, number one, what's the first thing that comes to mind when I say the word beautiful? And for the 8 people watching, I'd recommend you all type in the comment section, what is the first thing? What is the very first thing that comes to mind? Anyone know? There's a lot of different answers because it's a personal question. But whatever that is, go ahead and write that in the comment section. And I'll explain why, because maybe you'll end up putting the same answer that the other 250 or 300 people answered. A lot of people put similar, very similar answers. So whatever that might be for you, I recommend putting that in the comment section or thinking about it as I'm talking about this now. Question 1, what's the first thing that comes to mind when I say the word beautiful? And question 2, as you think about that, why? Why did that idea or that word, that concept appear in your mind when I said the word beautiful? Whatever that is, it's probably going to end up in 2 possible categories. Number 1, it might have been a beauty of artifacts, and artifacts are just things made by humans. So perhaps you were thinking about some sort of statue you like, or maybe famous man-made wonders of the world, like the Leaning Tower of Pisa, or the Egyptian pyramids, or the Sphinx, or a great deal of these wonderful constructions, Colossus of Rhodes, Great Wall of China, all these beautiful things that humans have made, which are pretty cool, you got to admit. And so there's these qualities that you seem to find consistently in the beauty of artifacts, things made by humans. Number 1 is order, which is some sort of intelligible relationship between parts, and it kind of has that type of unity to it. And also it's the unity of order with intent and shoulddness of relation. We'll get to that, don't worry, skipping ahead, but mostly just think of order, which is intelligible relationship between parts. 2 is the intent, purpose, reason, design, but really intent or purpose. So that would be intelligible intent, such that the order is recognized as being placed for a specific reason. So we could see something that has ordered patterns, right? If you look at a diamond molecularly, you can see these very clear, like crystalline sequences and patterns of the carbon molecules all compressed. And so you could see, oh, this is a very consistent pattern of the molecules in the structure. But that doesn't really entail necessarily a type of intent, purpose, or reason. But in many cases, intelligible intent could be found when you see order that is placed in different sequences to convey a message or for some sort of purpose or function. So, for instance, you could have something like the Leaning Tower of Pisa, right? You could see that the different arches are very orderly, as in you see this consistent order of arch after arch after arch. But also, there is another experience or understanding of beauty when you know the function of those arches, when you know the architectural function of the arches in supporting each layer above it. And so you're able to understand the beauty of the thing more fully, appreciate it more completely. And then number 3 is the distinction, something I had to make up to try and get the point across, because it's identified between an or a relationship within the object itself, all of which point to a more profound relationship elsewhere. So simply put, it's like this. When you see the Leaning Tower of Pisa and you experience, you're observing it, you experience moments where you feel very small. And yet you also still find Leaning Tower of Pisa really beautiful, despite you feeling and very mortal in those moments. You feel like you could easily pass away, yet this building is probably going to keep. There's this sense in which you find that beautiful, despite the fear that might inhabit you in thinking. It's this sense of this relationship between you and the Leaning Tower of Pisa, you and the Colossus of Rhodes, you and the Great Wall of China. You feel small or perhaps weak or temporary, and yet you experience beauty more deeply in recognition of those facts. Kind of weird, right? It's very strange, but it's true. It's most definitely true that we experience beauty more fully in the recognition of this relationship that just feels right. For some reason, when a small, temporary, squishy, transient human being is in relationship with or is related to something that's much larger, much more grand, much more interesting or complex than ourselves, we have this sense that it's just the way things should be. Like, oh, something that just feels right about that, Little us being related to something way bigger, way more grand, way older, that feels right. So this would be part of our shouldness of relation. And it seems to be the most foundational aspect of the aesthetic experience, the beautiful experience with artifacts, and also with the beauty in natural, non-man-made things which simply exist as they are. So number one, in this case, people normally see order, which is an intelligible unity of the various parts in a whole, and number two, shouldness of relation. Oddly enough, same as what you would have seen if we went left on the cursor on the mouse, what we saw there. Shouldness of relation, just this graphic landmarks. Us being small and these things being greater, us being temporary and these things being far older, just feels right. We feel like, oh man, I think I'm just meant for this. I think everyone should experience this. I think this is what humans are made for. Which is weird because you're feeling small and significant in a certain sense, and yet you're also embracing the beauty of that fact because it just feels like it should be. Like humans are meant to relate in this way to something larger. Now, I would also argue that technically, intense purpose or reason does seem to be part of nature as well. We see this with the complexity of systems, the nature of DNA in various systems, and how there seems to be this real intentional ordering of things in such a way that you could call it an intelligence. In the DNA are intended to produce this kind of protein, and this protein will result function for a greater purpose in the body. So I would actually argue that we'd also see intelligible intents in relation, in these various experiences of beauty in nature as well. Though most people would not immediately think of that beauty in nature, I would argue we still see that in biological systems and complex informational systems, in the general telos, the general purpose-based design of a lot of things. There seems to be a very intelligent and function form-fitting design of a lot of organisms, and I think that is relevant for this discussion. I really do. I really think that's relevant. So which of the overall qualities seems to be missing over here? People would say the intelligible intent. And I would still question that. I'd push back on it. But just to be fair to people, I guess we could say the order and the shouldness of relation are the things people can agree on in both beauty of nature and beauty of artifact. That's the thing. So again, order, some things that are related together. It can be abstract or concrete in a relationship which is expressed by a contrast, outlines, lighting, spotlighting, focal point, superpositioning, repetition of color or sound, texture, proper sequence and placement in relation to other objects or concepts. Now, I know a lot of that sounds physical, like visual, like a lot of paintings and photos, but also, the proper sequence and placement in relation to other objects is something you also see with abstract objects, abstract concepts. Oh, it is a beautiful thing for a husband to be loving to his wife. And that's just the way things should be, right? We have this sense of order in that, as in husband and wife, in relation to each other, the presentation of some relata in a relationship which is proper order or sequence. So husband by wife, husband loves wife, wife loves husband. There's a sense of order to it. Even if it's hard to describe, there is a real sense of order. You also see this with like government structures, like, leadership. It just feels orderly, and it's a beautiful thing of order to have a leader and then some people who are in sections that do their own work while following this leader. And so we see this kind of order in a great variety of concepts, but also in a great variety of visual things as well. Intelligible intent, it's the desired communication of a message, concept, or idea, which is expressed by some purposeful ordering of relata, that is, again, objects in relation to each other, with a desire that it can be recognized as ordered and understood as intentional towards the end of communicating the painter, author, musician, artist's message. Simply put, this intelligible intent is usually what we mean by the word meaning or purpose. What's the purpose of making this painting? Yeah, so you can see the one painting and look at it and say, oh, I can tell there's order in it because there's some sections where there's yellow and some sections where there's not. There's some sections where there's blue and there's some sections where there's not. And it seems like there's a general placement of certain colors in certain places where they wouldn't be elsewhere. And then some colors in the middle of those colors. So white is in some parts, but it's definitely not in others. So you can tell that there's a kind of order. But everything I just said doesn't actually mean anything about the meaning or the purpose. It just reveals that there is some sort of order of relations. But then you could say, oh, all of these things come together to form a face. And so it is possible that they're trying to depict a human face. And oh, that's cool because there's beauty in a human face. And so now there's beauty in the painting of a human face. It communicates beauty in a greater sense because now you can actually see the overall intent of the order throughout the painting to form a greater image. So that's what we would say there, intelligible intent. That's the purpose, meaning, or design. The one on the bottom, that one is a scene made by some children who were in a Holocaust concentration camp. And so you could see not just the order of the various characters, but a deep meaning, which is present in the drawing of the child. I think that's really, there is a tragic beauty to it. Not a beauty in the horrible event that happened, but in this child's innocence, willing to draw and depict what they had about them. So you have this deeper sense of a tragic beauty and perhaps even tragedy with the ordering of certain things to get a message, meaning, or purpose across. Sometimes to talk about tragic beauty, we'll instead use the word depth. This is a very deep image, and it tries to reflect the notion of a lot of meaning packed into it that still triggers the beauty response, but not in like the positive, happy-go-lucky kind of way, but something a bit more pensive and slow to react to. And then finally, the shouldness of relation, which is just that, there's intent, purpose, or a message or meaning being communicated by the artist through the art to the observer. So there's a lot of ways this can happen. Number one, the art or the thing you're looking at that's beautiful, it exemplifies an oughtness of relationship external to or transcendent beyond the given instance of relationship through the relationship of the observer to the observed. So simply put, SOR1, example 1, is human to mountain. Human to mountain. This feeling of beauty we have between us and the mountain, this experience of beauty we have, is because of an oughtness, a shouldness. It just feels right. There's some sense in which it feels right that we should relate to something bigger and older and more grand than ourselves. And it seems to be transcendent to the actual mountain itself, right? This would be the first example. The second example reflects or exemplifies reality or some relata within reality as they ought to be in relationship to each other within the art. So let's say we're looking at a photo in which it has a black and white photo of, or perhaps in this nice little family photo here, this for the sake of exalting the same reality as desirable and as that which ought to be in the reality external to the object observed. So fancy way of saying we have this image right here of a family, and we see this as beautiful because the relationship of the individuals in the picture, we say, oh, the artist is saying this is a good thing. And that's good because in reality, it's a good thing that a family is in healthy relationship to each other. So this would be an example of SOR2, right? In which we're saying, okay, there's these relationships that just feel right. And it kind of brings us back to SOR1, right? Shouldness of relation 1. in which we say, okay, there's something about this that just feels families should be in healthy, loving, communion with each other. Should. And so if that's the case, then we would say, oh, this is a beautiful painting because it correctly reflects. And then you could say, why is that actual real life good thing beautiful? It goes right back to it. It always points to something more transcendent. No matter what, it always gets there somehow. Number 3, it depicts, exemplifies reality or some relata within reality as they ought not be in relationship to each other within the art, in order to say bad. So this is simply saying that we can call some forms of art beautiful that are grotesque or upsetting or show awful moments, but we can still call the art beautiful even if the moment it's showing is not. And so we could say that let's say we have a black and white photo of a uh, let's say we have a black and white photo or a drawing of a slave owner beating or whipping a slave. And so we would say that this, and then let's say that the artist is trying to depict this as an evil thing. So they show the wickedness of the expression of the slave owner's face, and then the sadness that the slave experiences in that moment. They show the grief of the slave, realizing they can't escape, and the slave owner, the slave master, with their anger and hatred towards their slave. And in that case, we would say that since the artist wants to depict this as a wicked moment, the artist is saying this is the way things should not be. And we would say, oh, good. Then we would agree that in real life, this is the way things should not be. In the art, they're trying to make that same message. So we could say that there is a type of beauty here because they're trying to say this bad thing I'm showing is bad, simply put. So if you're showing a good thing, like a beautiful thing, as beautiful and good in your painting, then we would say that the painting is beautiful. If you're showing a bad or unbeautiful, like an ugly thing in your painting and trying to say that it's ugly, we would say, good, this is still beautiful art because it's correctly describing actually beautiful or actually horrible things. So there's a unity, right? They're saying that it's true, that is horrible. And so we could still say the art is beautiful. Now, if there's ever a mixed match, that's where we would say that it loses its beauty. So let's say someone has this painting of a slave owner beating a slave, and then they say, oh, that's a good thing, though. That's a really good thing. This is amazing. If someone said that and they're intense, they try to brighten up the colors to show this like very beautiful utopian Americana where we have a slave owner all happily beating his slave and the slave is like happy about being beat, then we'd say, oh, okay, this isn't beautiful. There's something kind of perverse, not right, sinful, wicked, not beautiful about this art because it's showing something wicked and trying to pretend that it's beautiful, that it's good. And so if you ever mix match with the intents of the painter and you're showing some sort of incorrect intents, or you're showing things that should not be as if they should be, then we would say, oh, that's not beautiful. That's not beautiful. Disimer, yes, welcome to this conversation. I hope that you'll find this conversation on beauty intriguing. Again, this is just the early parts of it, just the early parts. So we're just trying to make sure people are kind of on the same page here for this confusing concept, shoulddness of relation. This is really something that I've just been working on for the past couple of years in my own personal studies, philosophical, theological analyses. And so I'm hoping that we can get somewhere deep and meaningful with this conversation. If you have any questions, please let me know. I am more than happy to deal with any questions anybody has. And as a general bit of information, there's a lot of ways that these three things can be reflected or shown. So what I did is I made this really big table on this full document I have about all my work on beauty. If somebody wants access to a couple of these examples of maximally beautiful, horrific or disgusting, naturally beautiful, it's really interesting to see the combinations, right? So you can have something that's orderly and intentional, but the shouldness of relation or the oughtness is absent. So let's say we have this very orderly painting in which the intent of the painter is quite clear, but the thing that they're intending to show is like awful or evil. And they're trying to say that awful, evil thing is a good thing. Well, you'd say, oh, then you're missing your shouldness of relation. You're missing the oughtness of the experience. Oh, nice to have you here, Philip. Right on. Nice to see you again. I hope you can stay for a little bit longer, but wonderful to have you stop by anywho. And so if someone has something that's orderly and intentional, but they're intending to show the evil thing as a good thing, then we would say this is actually horrific or disgusting. And so that's what we would say there. Unless, of course, it's showing, they're orderly and intentional, but the scene they're showing is, something that's horrible, but then they're trying to say, oh, no, I know that this is horrible. There's no shouldness of relation here. And that's my intent, to show that this is bad. Then we would say it's motivationally beautiful. They're trying to show something awful to get a point across that it's awful. But if someone is showing something is awful, and I'll update this chart just so that it becomes a little bit more clear what I mean by present or absent. So don't worry about that. But just try to think about these three things and what happens if something's present versus absent, how that works. Something you might see on this chart here around the middle part is the order is absent in the painting, but the intent of the author is clear to you. It's present and it's in there and it's known to you. And the oughtness or shouldness of relation is there. Like there's something truly beautiful, and they're trying to say that it's truly beautiful and it's intentional, but the order is just not there. It's just not working out. We would call this ITTTC. When someone wants to make a beautiful thing, but they just don't have the skill required to make it orderly and clearly easy to see. Anyone want to take a guess in the comment section what ITTTC stands for? When someone wants to make something wonderful, but they just don't have the skills to, but they're really trying, and you could tell. And anyone want to take a guess what that might stand for? I would be really impressed if somebody was able to guess a well-known phrase that we say when people try to make something beautiful, but they kind of fail at it. But at least they tried. So if anyone can take a guess as to what that phrase is, I would be really, really impressed. Who here wants to take a guess? ITTTC. Anyone at all? I can see some of you might be able to figure it out if you think about what you would say to somebody when they try to make something beautiful or sweet or romantic, but the order's just not there, so things just didn't work out. It's not the most orderly thing in the world, but at least they tried. What's something that we say in those cases? If you can't figure it out, don't worry. This is a well-known phrase, which is, it's the thought that counts. It's the thought that counts. So that's ITTTC, right? It's the thought that counts. It didn't come out exactly the most orderly, and if it weren't for the fact that the author or painter made themselves known, then you probably wouldn't know exactly. But because you do know their intents, what they were trying to do, and it was a really sweet, good thing, it was a really beautiful thing, then you would say, oh, yeah, it's the thought that counts. So that's what that would be, ITTTC. And if someone wants access to my larger document, all my work on beauty, I can open that up to all of you. But what I'm going to do is do a quick pause on so that people can, hopefully my live stream will clean up a bit if there was any issue with lags at all. We'll have a chance to talk a bit more. But so far, all we've tried to do is describe the foundation of beauty. What is beauty? What makes something beautiful? So my general argument so far is that there's some sense in which there's an order, a sense of purpose or intent, and a shouldness of relation. There's this transcendent sense that things just feel right about the way things are relating in that picture, or things feel right about this relationship of me with this mountain, me with this ocean, me with this valley. You get these senses that these three things are pretty common in a lot of the experiences people have of beauty. I'm also trying to obviously argue against the whole beauty is just in the eye of the beholder claim. I think that's not really completely true. I think that's nonsensical. And I think most people who say that also would disagree if we push them a little bit more in questioning. Many of you, and again, it's not like, oh, you're thinking illogically because you use that phrase. I'm simply saying, I believe that people can apply beauty to various things. And so what people can see, when it comes to beauty is within their own ability to see beauty. And so that's true. But I wouldn't say beauty is just in the eye of the beholder, as in it's totally subjective, totally random, completely illogical. I think there's actually real foundations to beauty that really exist. And that if you slowed down and talked with people about it, you realize that they're all kind of looking at these similar traits. For people who are mentally rational, good mental rational faculties, they have reason and everything's working in their brain. And then they usually end up looking for the same qualities, even if it's in different objects. Most people ended up saying to my two questions. Again, my first question was, what's the first thing that comes to mind when I say the word beautiful? And a lot of people say flower, nature, sunset, sunrise. Smile is somewhere up there, but it's probably lower part of the list. Family, love. A lot of guys would be like, oh, my girlfriend. A lot of ladies would be like, oh, my boyfriend. It'd be really cute, them doing that together. So a lot of relational language would happen there. A lot of people would say music. A lot of people were like, oh, music's so beautiful. I love music. It's great. So many people would say that too. In all these different cases, though, you start to notice when I ask the second question, which is why? Why is that the first thing that came to mind when I say the word beautiful? What about that specific thing is beautiful? You started to notice, as I did in my research, oh, these are actually similar attributes that they're looking at and that they're pointing to when they talk about beauty. Be it a flower, forest, nature, sunrise, sunset, oceans, families, loved ones, boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, all these things that just kind of ended up being shared qualities were order, intentionality, or a type of purpose and meaning and value that's intentional, and then a shouldness of relation, which is the most confusing part for people. They're like, I don't know, it just feels right. And I'm like, yeah, no, I get what you mean. Something just feels right. Something transcendently feels right about the experience of beauty that a lot of us have. And I think that's a totally meaningful, valid, and reasonable thing to say. For a lot of people, yes, that makes sense. So if we're good on that so far, everyone following along so far, okay. If you are, please give me a couple hearts or a yes in the comment section so I know that we're okay. I want people to make sure they feel somewhat aligned with what's going on here. Usually my examples work better than my slides because those get a little bit complex, but hopefully my examples I give individually to break it all down make things a bit more clear. So if that's the case, please let me know. I want to make sure people are understanding it before we get right back into the presentation. Perfect. Alrighty. If that is the case, I'm going to try again to share this way. Don't worry, I'll try again. We'll figure all this stuff out eventually. It's okay. Sometimes it just takes a little minute, but I'm willing to wait the minute, so that's fine. So if it is a black screen, again, just let me know. Hopefully it'll load soon enough so you can actually see what I'm showing. Let's see if it works. Oh, I think that might be a black screen again. Okay, let's see. Okay. Is it? I think so. Okay. All right. I'm going to try that one more time. Let's see if I can get this one to work here. All righty. I'm going to try this again with this one. I think this, yeah, there we go. All righty. So on with the presentation, we're on the next part here on this difference in beauty of the natural and beauty of the artifact. So artifactual just means made by a human being, or in other words, that which is an artifact. I'm not really convinced that this distinction is necessary. I know I mentioned this before, but to really clarify, I think that the same experience of beauty in both the artifact and the natural indicates that those same qualities ought. So here's a helpful example. So let's say, that the actual mountain is beautiful in a way similar to the painting or photo of that very same mountain. Well, why does the artist of a mountain? Well, the artist paints the image of a mountain because they're trying to describe or communicate beauty. So basically, every single time that we have this presentation of beauty, it's to communicate beauty. If the presence of such art is for the sake of expressing or communicating the beauty of the mountain to others, and we assume this SOR1 beauty to be an objectively true quality of our relationship with the mountain. So every single experience we have of beauty, potentially just to reason this out a bit, every experience we have of beauty, form of beauty to our audiences. Beauty is just intrinsically communicative. It's communicable. And if beauty is intrinsically communicable, then we should not consider the human artist to be the only one communicating. Of the human artist photographing or painting the mountain was to communicate the beauty of some referent, concrete reality, physically communicable. And that means that the mountain itself is a work of art that is being used to communicate the beauty of some greater reality before the mountain. To say it more simply, if beauty is intrinsically communicable, personal source communicating even natural beauty to observers, beauty is intrinsically communicable. It's just beauty is a thing that's meant to be communicated. Therefore, there must be some personal source communicating even natural beauty to observers. So I'll say it like this, right? Uh, there is basically, if there is a painter of the painting of the mountain, and he intends to communicate the mountain's beauty to the observers, I would say there is a painter of the mountain who is trying to communicate the beauty of something greater to the observers. That's what I would say. Instead of there being a painter of the painting of a mountain, I'm saying there is also a painter of the mountain. That's what I would say, and that's one part of my argument. Depending on how you take natural versus artifact beauty, you could say there is a painter of even the mountains, a painter of even the trees, a painter of even the lakes, and a painter of the deepest abysses in the ocean, a painter of the trenches, a painter of the lands, a painter of the skies, a painter of the stars. There is a divine painter who communicates a greater beauty through all of these forms of beauty. And so we could say that the chain of beauty, who is he communicating, or what is he making all these things, mountains, stars, and trees, and all that? Beauty of himself. The chain stops with him. So he's communicating his own beauty through the things he creates. That's what I would argue. Beauty is objectively a real quality, and it's one of its attributes is just being communicable. It's communicative. It's meant to be shared and related to. Then that's of all the beautiful things we see as well. So that's all of the attributes. Just to be sure, that's all of the attributes of beauty. Again, order, intent, and the effects of beauty, the aesthetic experience. So beauty is three things. Has these three effects on people, on rational minds who behold it. Number one is communicative, which is when you experience beauty. What is something you do when you see a mountain? What is something you do when you see the ocean, or when you have this beautiful moment with your family? What's something a lot of people will usually do? A lot of people, all people that I know, will try to capture and share it with others. So they'll share that picture of that mountain with other people. Before we had phones and internet, people would draw these pictures of the mountains and sketch them and doodle them, make poems about them, the beauty of that experience. Beauty is intrinsically communicative, as in when you experience beauty, you're naturally drawn to communicate that to others. And then also beauty is unitive, which means beautiful, you're united to it in some real way. It really, really is present in the individual. And so that would be the unitive experience. That's what we would say there. What you call beautiful, part of you. And it's important to make sure that you're very careful about what you call beautiful, because that will reflect deeply on you, and it could even change you, right? Some people couldn't stand just the thought of families make them upset because they're like, oh, everything's tough with families and it's so complicated and difficult. But then, once they see a good example of a family, then they'll say, oh, Oh, I like that. I find that very good. And then the person actually changes. They're unified to that experience of beauty they saw in a good, healthy family. And so, in this unity they have with that experience of beauty, they start to change as a person and say, oh, I would like to have something like that. So, the experience of beauty is unitive. You become bound to or united with that thing you experience to be beautiful. But also it's replicative or generative, which means and this is the most interesting part of the three, perhaps, potentially. If you experience the beauty of some nice old fellow, like this lady is in the bottom right corner, then she's going to try and paint a painting of him. If someone sees a beautiful mountain, they want to take a photo of it. They want to generate something in the image and likeness of the thing that they're experiencing. If people really enjoy some forms of music or sounds in nature, a lot of times they'll try to replicate that or capture that, make a YouTube video for like 10 hours of nature sounds, 10 hours of it. They want to generate something in the image and likeness. It's essential to the beatific or the aesthetic experience to make something in its image and likeness. And so, again, this one is just saying the experience of beauty drives one to communicate Instagram stories or Facebook or messages in your group chats and friends and family and all this stuff. You're trying to communicate these various facts and acts of beauty to your friends and family. It's just essential to the experience of beauty. You want to communicate beauty to others. The unitive act of beauty, the experience of beauty in some real sense, unites the individual to the object of beauty. That is, what makes the object or idea beautiful becomes present in the individual who experiences it. So the one who experiences the beauty of a healthy, loving relationship, they sense it, they see it, they think about it and ponder it. They'll begin to internalize and reflect that which makes those relationships beautiful. If they really understand what makes that beautiful, and they desire it, then they'll start to be unified to it. They'll become the kind of person who would want that. And the generative. The experience of beauty drives or causes one to desire replicating the beautiful experience. In other words, the one who experiences beauty will desire to make something in its image and its likeness. So after seeing a mountain, people desire to make a poem, painting, drawing, song, statue, paper mache, or something to capture the beauty of the mountain. And so, just as the aesthetic attributes must be in some sense present in the divine nature, right? So, if we're saying that order, intent, and shouldice of relation, if they're objective, they have to be present in God, which I agree they should be. Uh, then so too must the aesthetic effects pre-exist in God. So God must be in some sense communicative. He must be in some sense unitive or unified, and he must be in some sense generative, generating that which is beautiful. Well, Christianity has an answer to this, and I find the answer that Christianity offers very, very beautiful. It's a fact that God is essentially relational in Christianity. We see this in the scripture, both that holiness is beautiful, as the book of Leviticus says, but also that in the fact God is essentially relational. He's one being, he's one united or unitive being who exists as three persons who are all united in their essence. That's really unique to the Christian model of God, the Christian understanding of God, and it's best able to be explained this way. The God of the Old and New persons, as in like intelligent, rational intellects or consciousness that can speak with each other, they communicate, who are one in will, essence, and name, and so that's unitive again. The three persons are reflective of the real relations present within the divine nature that the Son is generated by the Father, and procession or spiration. The Holy Spirit is proceeding forth or generated by the Father and the Son eternally. Not created, generated. Different word. Focus on that, right? So the unitive, communicative, and the is within himself. And God is beautiful. Therefore, it makes sense that beauty would come from this model of God. But then why did God make us, right? If God was, perfection by himself, by himself as he is, the three persons, before there was ever creation to behold, had always beheld beauty, right? Because God had always known himself. The Father had always seen the Son. The Father has forever borne witness to the beauty of his. Having experienced eternally the beauty of his beloved, God is drawn from within himself to make something in the image and likeness of his Son. And so, God made you. God, it is the Father, his eternal experience. Well, what is that which is beautiful? God. God sees himself as perfectly and his likeness, as we see in Genesis chapter 1, when he speaks about the creation of humans. Then God said, let us make man in our image. Male and female, he created them. That's beautiful. That is beautiful. And so I pray that all of you who are watching are able to see the beauty of the rest of the world makes gods in their own image. We have a God who made us in his image. Because the experience of beauty within God is so potent, so wonderful, that God is drawn from himself to make something in the image and likeness of his own beauty. God made us in his image, in his likeness. That's amazing. And so, with that being said, and that being our here, before we move on to how Islam gets beauty, I wanted to make sure everyone's on the same page here. We're about to go into the next part of our presentation, which will be significantly faster, in which we're going to talk about how Islamic philosophers have tried to talk about beauty. And again, if there's any individuals in the audience or any of y'all who know anything about Islam, now would be a good time to ask a whole lot of questions, because we're now going to see a lot of people are probably thinking, all right, well, beauty is so interesting, and if it's really objective, then there's got to be some source of that objectivity, and that source would be a God. But some of y'all might be thinking, yeah, Christianity has some good answers for it, but what about Islam? That's a pretty big religion right now. Well, we're going to go through what Muslim philosophers have said about beauty to see if even their views of beauty make sense with their model of God and with what the Quran says. My argument is actually that the Muslim philosophers early on were really looking for the Christian God because the Quran couldn't uphold it. In Islam, beauty isn't changing spells and writing their spells on their walls. Yeah, I'm. I mean, I'm not really sure, but I'll say that it's quite interesting to see how. Oh, chanting. Yeah, sure. Oh, yeah, that's fair. That's fair. And uh, I see someone who said, "Praise be to." Yeah, I don't know about that person who said, "Praise be to Shaitan." I've never met a satanic Muslim before. That's interesting. So, besides that person who said, "Praise be to Shaitan," I would say that the way that Muslims have talked about beauty when it comes to Allah is a little confusing. I've heard many Muslims who say, well, Allah isn't beautiful because you can't see Allah. And I'm like, I think music's beautiful, but I can't literally see the sound waves entering into my ears. And I can't like see that. I experience it. I don't see it. I experience it in a different way. So I'm a little confused when I see Muslims talking about a lot of the ways they talk about beauty in general. But hopefully, if any of y'all have Muslim friends, you could share this live stream, because we're about to go into the Islamic part of this presentation. And I want the Muslims to be able to participate, ask questions, and hopefully maybe there's some pushback I missed or something like that. But I'd love for Muslims to be able to explain why they think Islam about beauty in Islam. I just made a joke on what I see as an outsider. I mean, no, I knew you were joking. I do think, realistically, I've seen very few Muslims make a case for Allah being beautiful, but I have seen a lot of Muslims make the case that the Quran is beautiful. A lot of Muslims have made the case that the Quran is the most beautiful thing. It is the most beautiful thing. It's the most beautiful script ever written. It's the most beautiful thing ever recited. Arabic is the most beautiful language, and it's so complex and intrinsically, meaningful and powerful. I've actually heard a lot of Muslims use a type of Islamic argument for beauty about the Quran. and some have made it about Muhammad, I guess. But it's rare, very rare that I ever see Muslims talking about Allah being beautiful. And when they use that term, I don't really know if they understand what they mean when they say Allah is beautiful or the Quran is beautiful. So this second presentation, hopefully, we'll have a chance to say, "Hey, are you really sure that you'd say that Allah matches what your philosophers say about beauty?" Because it seems like your depiction of Allah and your depiction of the Quran don't seem to match beauty. Don't seem to match those proper agreed upon definitions of beauty. And so that's what we're going to go through right here. What I heard say is that Arabic is great because its words can mean so many things. Isn't that just a very unprecise and unspecific language? Yeah, I would agree with that. Actually, I would agree that that's actually not a good thing when they say that Arabic is great because it has so many, each of the words has 100 different definitions. I would say, oh, well, that's not helpful. That I would say that is an unorderly or disorderly language, right? Because I think, as you're about to see, order is really important to communication. Communication should be something in which you can communicate your intent clearly and with good and clear order. Well, if you say, oh, this language has like 100 definitions for a single word, I would say, oh, it's not very helpful. That's not a very efficient language. I wouldn't consider that to be like the most beautiful language because it's just not that effective at doing the thing it's supposed to do. And so it's kind of like, oh, it's not that special. I'd also say that there's other languages that have a lot of, semantic range and intentional like range and the meanings that we can apply to a word. So I would say that Islam is not very unique when it comes to Arabic. And also those arguments are more like an Arabic supremacist argument instead of it being like a Quranic or Islamic argument. So it's kind of irrelevant unless, of course, it's supposed to reveal that a lot of Muslims have more a focus on Islamic supremacy or Arabic supremacy instead of actually like Islamic truth. Would you say room for speculation and imagination is an aspect of beauty? I would say that there is something beautiful about the process of thinking and reasoning. Yeah, yeah, I would say that there's a type of beauty in just having room for your brain to think and to ponder the deep things of God, those deep and beautiful things that princes and kings should ponder. That's the wealth that God gives by giving us rational intellects. God made us creative, and that includes our minds are quite creative in the thoughts that we think and the things that we pursue mentally. So yeah, why not? I would say room for speculation, imagination is an aspect of the beauty of creativity found within God Himself, and so He reflects that when He makes us creative individuals. So that's what I would say. Now, again, keep all this up. Oh, they use the Arabic uncertainty as a defense mechanism to say that Quran can't be translated, and also has an argument that Arabic is uniquely poetic. Yeah, they try to get a lot of mileage out of that claim, but it doesn't really prove either of those. Because again, other languages are also poetic. Like I don't get that's what happens when you take something and you just say, oh, well, my one experience of this shows that it's like super beautiful. It's like, all right, well, that doesn't mean that it's uniquely poetic at all. And even if that was the case, it wouldn't actually prove anything. Again, it's more like Arab supremacy and less like Islamic beatific or aesthetic supremacy. So it's just arguments that don't prove the thing that they wanted to prove, basically. That's what I would say there. And so next presentation real quick, and keep on sending in your questions. I can see all your questions as we go through. But this one is just, again, as a reminder, beauty would be something that is orderly, intentional, and the shoulddness of relation. So as we're moving on here, and let me make sure it's sharing on my screen correct. Yeah, I'm aware of the Arabic supremacist aspect of it. Yeah, and that's like the most consistent one I would argue, Philip. I'd actually say like that seems to be a lot of the arguments we see is more like supremacy and less theological or philosophically rigorous thought about beauty. I think that's a dark screen. All right, I'm gonna set that up again. And ready, set, go. So again, this is about if Islam is actually able to withstand critique when it comes to beauty. because a lot of Muslims say the Quran is the most beautiful, and they'll say Islam is the most beautiful. I'm really just gonna kind of like push a clear from what I've seen in Islam, from what I've seen from Muslim theologians, Muslim philosophers early on, some of the best Muslim philosophers. I just don't see consistency between their depiction of Allah, their explanations of the Quran, their explanations of Arabic, and then them saying after all this, oh, but Islam is the most beautiful religion. The Quran is the most beautiful. I just find that strange and often inconsistent or unsatisfactory. So again, just remember my 3 attributes and foundations of beauty: order, intent, and shrewdness of relation. If you think about the acts of beauty I talked about, communicative, generative, and the unitive, then you'd probably say, oh, all right, well, Islam is already discounted for that because they don't really have a model of God that's eternally communicating, or a model of God that's eternally in relationship, or a God who even makes things in his likeness, in his own image. The model of God in Islam already fails on the aesthetic acts part, the communicative, the unitive, and the generative, since there's no sense in which Allah is like eternally generating anything or experiencing beauty and knowing the experience of beauty in a personal sense, personal relational sense. But besides that point, just focusing on the attributes here: order, intent, and shrewdness of relation. If we focus on that, source of all beauty, and now it's analogous to God's own relationship with us, and beauty is be in God prior to him making us or a universe. But what if that is just your Christian understanding of beauty? How does it affect Islam? Well, here's the thing. It's actually not just my Christian understanding of things and contradictory explanation of beauty as it relates to the Quran, Islam, and Allah. Oh, that's interesting. For some reason, my screen stopped presenting this image. That's weird. Okay. Let's see why that stopped all of a sudden. I'm going to try something real quick. That's weird. It just stopped. Okay. I'm going to try that again. I don't know what just happened there. The moment I showed Muhammad on screen, it just kind of stopped. Let's see if this actually shows anything here. Y'all seeing anything? Anything at all? If you are, let me know. If you just see a black screen, I'm going to see why on earth it just shut off the stream, or not the stream, but the screen. That's really weird. Entire stream is laggy. Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's weird. All right. So what I'm going to do then is try my best to see why it just like shut it out, though. That's the weird part. It's the really weird part. I don't get that. I'm going to see if this works here. Okay. Let's see if that shows my screen at all. Okay. I'm seeing some good stuff here. There we go. And let's see if it works here and now. So now it should be working. Let me know if it actually does. That'd be good news. Okay. It is. All right. Good stuff. So back to it. Islamic philosophers also describe beauty. And a lot of the early Islamic philosophers they came to their conclusions about. Oddly enough, they came to a lot of the similar conclusions I came to through my interviews with so many people. Hey, they had something similar. So again, aesthetics is a branch of philosophy that deals with beauty, ugliness, and the value of objects. And so an analysis of beauty from Islamic perspective is an interesting article from 2020, in which we have some Muslim thinkers and Arabic thinkers trying to explore what is the essence of beauty, and with regard to the importance of this argument, how much Islamic scholars have dealt with this issue. So the results show that Islamic philosophers acknowledge that absolute beauty is great God as the source of all beauty. So all beautiful things in this universe are a reflection and manifestation of the beauty of God. Interesting. I actually came to a similar conclusion on my own. And fun fact, a lot of Christian philosophers did too. So who would have guessed that this is a consistent conclusion people come to when it comes to explanations of absolute beauty, objective beauty, and how that's sourced in God. And manifested throughout creation. Avicenna says aseity, that is self-dependence, has the absolute beauty and is the source of every beauty. He, Avicenna, one of the most well-known philosophers in Islamic, regards 3 attributes as the fortifiers of beauty, having order, writing, and balance, resulting in equilibrium and harmony. Given the definition for beauty in terms of balance and harmony have always been controversial. For instance, it is said this definition, just not rational and spiritual beauty, as Bassett simple existence, such as the being of God, does not include any components to be harmonious. That is to say, that if Allah is divinely simple, then he has no components, and so therefore there's no actual harmony in Allah because he has no components, he has no parts. So to say that it's equilibrium or harmony, a lot of people would agree with that, but they would actually have to say, well, no, because there's no sense in which there's any parts in Allah, there's no attributes in Allah, and there's no relations or relationship in Allah. So in what sense can Allah be the source of every beauty when there are some beauties that are relational or communicative, like a good relationship or sharing a beautiful experience with somebody else? Since sharing a good and beautiful experience is itself beautiful. In what sense could Allah be a good example of the source of all beautiful things? Not all things, all beautiful things. All beautiful things. That's the difference. How can Allah eternally and unchangeably be the source of relational or communicative? Great question. That's what I'm asking too. That is a really good question. So we should be asking that question this entire time. How can Allah eternally and unchangeably be the source of relational or communicative beauty? Perfection of God, of Allah. He says that God is of every good, perfection, and beauty. He knows that sort of in this world is a reflection of beauties in higher and other worlds. Oddly enough, they came to a similar conclusion I did. Interesting, right? I think that's how that goes. I'm sorry if I mispronounced it. I probably did. Tabatabai. Beauty means harmony between components. So, oddly enough, Mullah Soldier would say that every Muslim. So, again, this seems to be part of the Islamic tradition, quite clearly. To speak about my presentation here as we move forward so that people can have a chance to talk with it, and hopefully that'll make things a little bit less laggy. But in Islam, again, a soldier would state, I'm not even sure if Allah is eternal or unchanging. Islamic scholarship is sometimes very unpredictable. They deny the weirdest things at times. Yeah, that's true. There is some sense in which maybe some Muslims on like the fringes would say that Allah is able to change. Will above logic, yeah. So Allah in most cases seems to be more like a will monad instead of like an intellect, will, and reasoning and all that. But in either case, for all the people watching, I'm just going to talk through this so that you can understand the issues with the Islamic thought process here. So for all of you watching, as an actual question to all of you, in what sense is every beauty and perfection, according to Mullah Sudra, in what sense is every beauty and perfection present in the nature of Allah? So if you want to say it differently, in what sense is there harmony in Allah? Can you really say there's unity or harmony in Allah? Can you say that? I don't think anyone can. I don't think anyone really can say that there is beauty or harmony in Allah. But apparently, according to a lot of Islamic philosophers early on, you could say something like that. You could say that quite early on with a lot of Muslim philosophers. So that is something that you would see, and that's quite clear. But here's the answer. There's no sense, as in it's nonsense. It is nonsense to claim that Allah is able to be called or identified as what people are trying to illogical thought. So hopefully, if I can share this and you can all see it, then you're able to see some of my presentation remaining. So let's see if it works. Let's see if this is able to show. Alrighty, and so what we're seeing here is this. The answer to my question I just asked is this. In no sense, more clearly, it's nonsense. I really tried here. I actually tried to, again, go to Islamic philosophers, to a bunch of different scholars, and you'll see this as I'm going through, but very clearly, their logical and reasonable findings about the nature of God with what the Quran and Muslim believers actually hold when it comes to the Quran and Allah. So I tried to assume in Islamic philosophy. I went to the best Islamic philosophers I could in the Islamic position by going to your best philosophers, but they are all offering a definition for beauty that makes more sense in Christianity than it does in Islam. Of beauty that Islam's best philosophers and scholars have offered, Allah cannot be the one true God because he cannot be the source of all perfections and all beautiful experiences in the universe. Only a multi-personal God can all experiences of beauty. This is very clear. I don't find this complex at all. If all the Islamic philosophers want to define it that way, I would say right on. I would agree. I would agree that those are good definitions of beauty. Here's the issue. It just with Islam. It doesn't fit with Islam of order and intent and sureness of relation. If the Quran is really some aspect of Allah, then it must be said that Allah is in some part beautiful. Because again, I'm like, okay, well, the Quran is an attribute of Allah because it's his eternal speech. Therefore, you have anything. The word Quran is used sometimes to refer to God's attribute of speech, which is uncreated. Therefore, when we use the word Quran to refer to God's attribute of speech, it is uncreated. When we refer to the physical text or what we memorize and recite, those things are all created. So that would actually be from the Seeker's Guidance, the Global Islamic Academy. I'm not making this up. I'm not, trying to make a straw man. I'm trying to really reflect Islamic belief and practice about this stuff. So yes, if you say the Quran is the most beautiful thing ever written, and the Quran seems to try and get that point across, and a lot of Muslims do too, then you must say that there is in some sense real uncreated beauty that's present to Allah, since the true Quran is his, Now, what makes the Quran that which is most beautiful? According to Tartil blog, the 7 literary miracles of the Quran that make it the most beautiful are its rhetoric, its inimitability. Oh my goodness, inimitability, which just means that it can't be, and it's got such profundity that you can never fully explore it. So the language of the Quran is Arabic, which is known for its poetic richness, expressive power, and eloquence, as Philip was just talking about in the comment section. Inimitability. The Quran's eloquent divine wisdom in a succinct and comprehensible manner. The Quran's linguistic superiority reasons it is considered a miracle. The challenge it presents to humanity to produce a single surah or even a verse equal to its beauty and eloquence remains unmet to this day. Again, this is from a Muslim website. I obviously think that's nonsense. To say that even a single verse is unable to be matched. I've seen poems written by great poets that have single sentences that are more beautiful than a single sentence I see elsewhere in the Quran or a single verse. So that's a very made, and it's quite illogical to try to hold to that. Also, ring composition. Fancy way of saying chiasm or bookending, right? Just like, oh, it kind of starts here and ends here. It kind of starts here and ends here. They also mentioned the lack of chronological writing as a good thing on the web, straight moral and spiritual lessons. Ellipses, a unique feature where some components are intentionally left out. So if you see a lot of things that are missing, it's actually on purpose. Parallelism, which again is just to a lot of ring composition. You have parallelism in bookending, chiasm. And then timelessness and universality is just saying that apparently it is good for all times, for all peoples, all the time, all the place, even places where child marriage is, perhaps not legal, universally applied in that way, right? So is this poem beautiful? Why or why not? Well, if you take the time to read this poem, you'll find that it's written by the BTK, Bind Torture Killer, and it's a great poem, right? When it comes to its order, it is a visually and poetically beautiful or appealing poem. It's good, right? I would say this is not a beautiful poem because it's showing something that's horrible. Bind, torture, killer. Oh, Anna, why didn't you appear? 'Twas a perfect plan of deviant pleasure so bold on that spring night. My inner felling hot with propension of the new awakening season worn with inner fear and rapture, my blue vines at night. Oh, Anna, why didn't you appear? Drop of fear, fresh spring rain would roll down from your nakedness to scent to lofty fever that burns within. In that small world of longing, fear, rapture, and desperation, we play fall on devil ears. Fantasy spring forth mounts to storm fury, then winter clam at the end. Oh, Anna, why didn't you appear? Alone now in another time, span with sweet enraptured garments across most private thought, a bed of spring moist grass, clear, clean before the sun, enslaved with control, warm wind, scenting the air, sunlight sparkle, tears in eyes so deep and alone again I trod in past memory of mirrors and ponder why for number 8 was not. Oh, Anna, why didn't you appear? Again, this was written by a super duper famous serial killer in America and very poetic, but that doesn't make it beautiful just because it has rhyme scheme or rhetoric or, precision and depth of meaning. Getting into the mind of a serial killer is pretty deep. Some parallelism quite clearly. And I would say this continuous repetition details, I would say, like, all of a sudden it's the most beautiful thing because it's missing the shouldness of relation. And then this one's super famous. This is a serial killer in Canada who was actually a nurse that was killing a lot of her patients. So she watches some life drain vein as it soothingly pools, it smothers her pain. Sweet stiletto so sharp craves another cut. Obeying a call, she moves to his gut. So does this poem have rhythm? As she talks about using a stiletto to kill this person. Does this poem have descriptive language and powerful imagery? Yep. Does it have a nice rhyme scheme? Yep. Yeah, it's got an AABB. Is this poem truly beautiful? I would say no, because it is depicting something evil and ugly as if it is beautiful, which means it's actually horrifying, horrible. This one's really famous as well. This is a person who I think made a murder hotel, a murder house, in which all these different rooms had different ways for people to die who would check into his place. So they said, I was born with the devil in me. I could not help the fact that I was a murderer, no more than the poet can help the inspiration to sing. I was born with the evil one standing as my sponsor beside the bed where I was ushered into the world, and he has been with me since. Seriously, there's no way anyone could see this as beautiful. But if we're taking the Islamic approach to analysis of beauty, all we need is some sort of rhythm and depth of meaning. And even if it calls something, evil, beautiful, apparently that still counts as beautiful. Even though it's about straight up killing people and being possessed by Satan and all this stuff. So is the Quran intelligibly ordered? Since that first part of this is about order. Is the Quran intelligibly ordered? No. Is the Quran written so eloquently and clearly that the meaning of each passage and each teaching is made known to the well-educated observer? If not, then it is lacking in some kind of order, which means it is lacking in some form of beatific expression and is lacking the quality of beauty, which we call communicability or order. It is not clearly precise. It is not clearly, precisely, and eloquently ordered. Therefore, the Quran is not that which is most beautiful, be it in quality or in intrinsic relational ability. So is the Quran intelligibly ordered? Simply put, no, it's not. It's not the most perfectly intelligibly ordered thing. And so we wouldn't say that the Quran is truly the most beautiful thing, in that it's impossible to make a surah like it, because all you would need is to make something more orderly than it in order for it to increase in some beatific or aesthetic quality, at least partially. And any comparison right now between the Bible and the Quran would be pointless, since Muslims and Christians do not make the same claims about their respective books. Muslims are the ones saying you can't make a surah like it, you can't make a chapter like it. And that's not a thing that Christians say. We just say, no, the Bible's beautiful and it reveals the truth. Right? We're not trying to say that every single word of the Bible is, completely unlike anything you've ever seen, because it's got some, normal words that were used by the Hebrews and by the Greeks. And the Greeks and Hebrews use words. So we wouldn't say, oh, it had these, completely new sentences that had never appeared before. We wouldn't say that. What we'd say is the Bible is extremely beautiful. And because it points to God and says of good things that they're good and evil things that they're evil, and points us to God, then it is orderly in what it's trying to present. And it's also done in very good order throughout the Old and New Testament. It's intelligible and intentional with clear purpose the whole time through, from each story talking about the Messiah, the appearance of the Messiah, awaiting the second coming of the Messiah. Like there's this consistent intentional design and purpose. And then it's got a shoulddness of relation, calling evil, evil, calling good, good, and reflecting those properly. So we would say, oh, okay, well, the Bible is very beautiful. The Quran just doesn't do that. It's the content of the Quranic text which is reflective of the direct mind of Allah, expressing a proper shoulddness of relation. What we would say is husbands should take good care of their wives with the bounties God has given to some more than others, and with what they spend out of their own money. This is a really helpful tafsir to understand Surah 434. Righteous wives are devout and guard what God would have them guard in their husband's absence. If you fear high-handedness from your wives, remind them of the teachings of Allah, of God, then ignore them when you go to bed, then hit them. If they obey you, you have no right to act against them. God is most high and great. And so again, that's just a translation of Surah 434 from Abdul Halim. And then Quran 4:3, if you fear that you should not be able to deal justly with the orphans, marry a woman of your choice, 2 or 3 or 4. But if you fear that you shall not be able to deal justly with them, then only one, or a captive that your right hand possesses, that will be more suitable to prevent you from doing injustice. Or the cow, your wives are a place of sowing of seed for you, so come to your place of cultivation however you wish, and put forth righteousness for yourselves. And fear Allah, know that you will meet him, and give tidings to the believers. Or in Pickthall, your woman are a tilth for you to cultivate, so go to your tilth as ye will, and send before you for your souls, and fear Allah, and know that ye will one day meet him. So in all these, it's talking of women as if they're objects. Is the content really the reflection of Allah in the most perfect, beautiful sense? Because again, in the Bible, Muslims actually hold that this is a true attribute of Allah. Cannot even make friends with Christians, according to a lot of these understandings of it. Muhammad Ajab is quite clear on this. Man can marry a girl who hasn't reached puberty, Quran 65:4. Man may marry the wife of his adopted son, Quran 33:4. Quran 2, verse 282. A woman's testimony is worth half that of a man's. It's quite clear the Quran is not the most beautiful thing, not the best reflection of the shoulddness of religion, the eternal attribute of Allah. Get that. The eternal attribute. A man can marry a girl who hasn't reached puberty. The eternal speech of Allah, before there's ever even a universe, he has always been thinking and speaking that a man may marry the wife of his adopted son, and that a woman's testimony is half that of a man's before he made women. And of course, fight non-Muslims. Is the Quranic text intelligibly expressing the intent and purpose of why Allah does what he does and commands what he commands? Since it's the eternal speech of Allah, and even greater his own mind in some cases, as some people clear, and the purpose is to be obvious. After all, like Allah is, he's got a mind, right? He has his own mind. So surely there's some sort of rationality or clarity in his intentions and purposes. Again, in comparison to the Bible, here it would be illogical and foolish because different claims about their books and their systems. So is the Quranic text intelligibly expressing the intent and purpose of why Allah does what he does and commands what he commands? The Quran is not, no, it does not, very clearly. Even if you ask a Muslim, okay, why is Jesus born of a virgin? And they'll say, that's what he did, but why would he do that specific miracle with Jesus and Jesus only, making him born of a virgin woman? What does that reflect, that specific instance? And they'll say, oh, Allah knows best, but that doesn't get the point across. What's the purpose of that miracle versus other miracles? And why with him and not others? There needs to be a purpose, but it's just not explained in a lot of the Quran or the Hadiths. It's just a thing that's there. The Quran is not the most beautiful work ever made or written. There is nothing truly special about it, and its contents betray any aesthetic quality which it could meaningfully possess in a lot of cases. It's just not the most beautiful thing. So why can Islam not best explain the nature of beauty as we see it in the universe? How does Islam fail to express moral beauty? We can say a lot about this, but simply put, I would recommend you go back to my presentation to see how the Christians, because they have quite a few differences that make big differences. We talk about beauty. I will go to bed now. Have fun with the rest of the stream. I'll probably watch at a later date in full. Oh, wonderful to have you with us, Philip. This is actually just about this is the ending of the presentation as it is. I hope that it wasn't too horrible when it comes to the lag, but at least this time I didn't have a bunch of black screen for 15 or 20 minutes like it was the last time I did a presentation on beauty, which I just had a large number of black screens for 15 or 20 minutes, most of my live stream. So hopefully this was more clear for people. I pray it was. It was pretty horrible. Yeah. So if you need access to my presentations and PowerPoints so y'all can have access to it, please just let me know your Discord name, or I can put mine in the chat so that you guys can make a request and I could just give you my presentations. I don't want the video quality or internet quality to get in the way of you having access to good, helpful resources about the nature of beauty, how it's clear in Christianity, how it's unclear in Islam, and also how atheism fails to account for beauty as a real experience that we have. Because Islamic philosophers, Christian philosophers, Jewish philosophers would agree on the nature of beauty. Yeah, you just want to portray that the content and the way it is presented is relevant for something to be beautiful. Yeah, exactly. The content and the way it's presented. So it's not just order, but also the content itself should be beautiful. And it should be saying beautiful things are beautiful, ugly or horrible things are ugly and horrible, right? And I mean ugly in the non-beatific or non-aesthetic sense. Not like, oh, that's unattractive, but as in like this is morally ugly. This is truly horrible. So that's what I mean when I say ugliness. I meant with the laggy stream. Oh, no, for sure. Okay. Yeah, that's true. I'm working on that, well, as much as I can when it comes to internet. Can't really do much about that right now. Hopefully in the future I'll have much better internet, so that can be better. I hope so. Otherwise, people won't be able to see the nature of beauty as a beautiful thing if my presentation is not beautiful. Yeah. All right. Have a good one, Philip. And anybody else in the chat who's watching, I pray that all is well. I know that there's some pals who are over in Florida, North Carolina, who are dealing with the hurricane. I'll make sure to pray for them at the end of this live stream. And anyone who's watching, I pray that you would pray with me, because that's a pretty horrible set of circumstances out there. And I pray that people are able to survive. And despite the government's pretty significant failures when it comes to helping people out there, and a lack of money that should be going to those people, but it's just not. I pray that we can all pray for their safety and well-being. So please do keep people in prayer. That's pretty significant, pretty difficult. So any questions at all about beauty, about this presentation, anyone want access to it, please put your name in the comment section so I can see that. And I'll be heading out in just a couple minutes. So anything left from y'all, please let me know. But we'll be working on the live stream. We'll be working on internet connection in the next couple months for sure. So don't worry about that quite yet. We'll get there. We will get there. But with that being said, I'll make some YouTube shorts out of this so that you can at least get the snippets of information you might want out of this. Beauty is a really big thing for me. I'm trying to reawaken people, Christians and non-Christians alike, to the reality of beauty. I think in our modern world, we don't spend enough time really pondering and questioning the nature of beauty. We spend too much time calling horrible, wicked, evil things beautiful, and not enough time remembering the actual beautiful things, the really beautiful and godly things. I pray that in a return to beauty, people might have a far more robust return to God. So that's my desire, that's my hope, and that's my focus with a lot of this live stream, and also with my Christian, and that other people would be more intrigued in the truth of God, who explains the strangeness of beauty that we see in our world. So I pray that people come to see that beauty and understand that and experience that too. But with all that being said, I'm going to pray this live stream out, and I pray that those watching now or later would pray with me. Father God, I thank you so much for this live stream. I thank you that even with difficulties in internet connection, that this message could get out to other people. I pray, Lord God, that those who would want access to this information would request it so I can reach out to them and send them what they need. But I pray first and foremost, Lord God, that you would reach their hearts, those who are not believers and those who are, and anyone else. I pray that you would reach their hearts, reawaken them to the truth of beauty found in you alone, that you, Lord God, would make yourself known to them, and that to those who are currently suffering, you would still make yourself known to them, to those who are suffering in North Carolina, South Carolina, and Florida, and elsewhere, that you, Lord God, would keep them safe, protect them, allow them to turn towards you in their suffering and in their difficulty. Allow them to see you clearly and to not suffer harshly. To one of my viewers who is in Florida, I pray that you would protect them. They had come to know you, and before these hurricanes began, they had gone to church for the first time in many decades. So I pray for that viewer, Hunkwin Shanks, that you would keep them, hold them, and allow them to see you always. I know their internet might be down, so I pray that you, Lord God, would speak to them in a clear and open way. I pray this and protection for all of my viewers, no matter where they are, always, God. Pray all of this in the mighty name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Oh, wow. Wonderful question. I just saw that in the live chat. I'll answer that. Any update with the friendly Muslim and reasoned answers you were discussing beauty with? I haven't had a chance to speak with Anam for a while. That is a great question. I should really email him to see how he's doing there. No updates that I know of, but I would love to see anything going on there, and hopefully things are getting better in some sense. I really pray so. He was a really nice guy. Anam was a really nice guy, and I think he was so close. Just sometimes you need the friendly push. You need a friendly push to say, "All right, you're right there. You believe in the Trinity, and you believe in the truth of the Trinity. Just take that leap." But sadly, Esther, no, I do not have any updates on that. I should really check in with him to see how he's doing. It's a good question. Great question. So, with that being said, again, if any of you want access to these PowerPoint presentations, please let me know and I'll give them to you directly. I don't require any compensation. I just want people to have access to resources. You could share this video or those PowerPoints with Muslim friends to see how they would respond. I want critique as well. So if there's, besides internet connection and other things I can work on, I know I can work on that. But, well, I can't really work on that until I fix the internet issue. But until we get there, for now, I pray that people will see what's being said and understand the intrigue and how powerful beauty is, and realize there has is the way it is. So I'll make sure to put that into as YouTube shorts for this video as I can to make it easier, sound bites and clips for all of you use and share with others. So please like this video, subscribe for more content. I'm going to try my best to fix the internet issues as much as I can. And I pray that all of you will have a blessed day. God be with you.